Every now and then, a bit of puzzle solving is just the ticket. Merge this with a top-down action setting and a silly backstory for a bit of context, and you've got something worth a bit of time. S.C.OUT, which I will be calling S.C.OUT from here on in, is something I've had on my 630 for a while, but never gave a proper shot until now, and that's to my detriment. I've quite enjoyed it. Welcome then to YesterYear's Mac Games, where today we're playing something that, if you played on DOS, will look a little different. Much greyer, much more zoomed in, and a tad uglier. The DOS version did, however, have a few things that the Mac one didn't. This little opening animation, a level editor, and a camera, if you can call it that, which moved around with the player every single tile. The Mac one demanded the player mosey over to the edge before it drew anything in that direction. Anyway, S.C.OUT takes place on an off-world base on Deimos, which is one of Mars's moons. The story, present in the game's manual, explains that the base was set up by a bunch of nutcases who believed that it was within their rights as individuals to possess small tactical nuclear warheads. To the relief of everyone on Earth, they shoved off over here and began developing additional ordnance for a bit. Then they all died. The cause of the sudden mass disappearance was unexplained, so the base was quarantined and left alone for a bit, before overpopulation on Earth and the rising value of off-world land became such major factors that reclaiming the base became a serious option. A team of surveyors were sent to find out what was down there, who of course all disappeared. Realising that perhaps it would have been a good idea to have kept video contact with them when they were sent down, none of them thought to livestream their progress. A probe with a camera was sent down, so Mission Control could have a good look at whatever was causing all of the hassle. This was subsequently eaten by a massive worm, so that solved that mystery. After losing another one to a glob of slime, enough was enough. The probes had at least figured out that the worms and slimes were being controlled by another entity, immobile but armoured. Thus, a handful of remote control crafts called Star Cleanout, abbreviated to Scouts, are entrusted to the player to clear out the 100 infested zones, so that Deimos may be safely settled. A player achieves that by detonating an atomic photon grenade, which are just lying around, next to each armoured entity in each stage. So, to complete a level, the player will need to locate the grenade, the entity, and usually a key to remove the silver spheres, as well as a purple target which removes the purple spheres when shot. Along the way will be a series of obstacles and hostiles, as well as ammunition and tools to overcome them. It starts off simple enough. Each item seems to be introduced one by one, with the game hitting full swing by stage 10 or 12. To be honest, I think the difficulty then more or less stays the same until stage 80 or so, when the bullets required to destroy specific things start to get rather aggressively rationed. The key mechanic the game uses revolves around the bullets only being fireable in particular directions. If you see one pointing left, that's the way it'll go when it's fired. At times, the game can tease the player with every directional bullet besides the one they need, and other situations will necessitate a bit of forward planning so that all the bullets going in a particularly desirable direction don't all get used up too early. No good reason is really given as to why they can only go at their designated angle. I guess the former residents of Deimos had just gone a bit mad. Well, even madder. These destroy worms, foliage, and bombs that have just been left haphazardly around. I can't help but wonder if the former residents maybe killed themselves falling over one of these things, and the aliens just moved in afterwards. Whizzing into one of the surrounding tiles sets it off, which obviously destroys the Scout. Unless it's on one of these things, which I guess must be some sort of force field. It makes an energy-sounding noise, so that's a good guess. Worms and slimes won't set foot on here, so it's a good place for the player to hang out while they wait for them to get out of the way. A slightly more exploitative way to avoid dying if one comes along is to simply put the item that the Scout is holding on the floor. Any tile with anything on it will be avoided by hostiles, like they're scared of them. The ammo maybe makes sense. The key? Less so. He's got a shiny key. Run away! I guess as a result of this, S.C.OUT does tend to use single-file corridors with a slime running up and down it a bit too much. There's a bunch of these in pretty much every level. One-way mazes are also pretty common, as are large build-ups of worms that are let loose when a barrier is removed. These are nullified all too often by building a little wall of bullets. I didn't really find myself getting bored while playing the game, but then again, I did have the level codes on hand, so I could bounce around them in whatever order I chose. I've done about 40 in all. If I'd done all of them before uploading this, the video would have taken another couple of weeks and the footage wouldn't have got any better. All the levels look pretty similar. This illustrates one of S.C.OUT's weaker traits. The tile set is fine, The sort of murky pistachio colour is certainly better than the grey in the DOS version, but there's 100 stages and I wouldn't be able to identify 48 from 84. A few different tile sets would have been incredibly refreshing if they'd been cycled. There's a muddy external tile that shows up from time to time, and you know the standard colours are becoming tedious if you look forward to the next appearance of something as banal as this. To counter that gripe, however, this is a game from 1992, and most long-term Mac users who picked this up may well have only just emerged out of the world of monochrome, and some were still there. I doubt there was much complaining about this at the time. The music track is alright. I've mentioned before that I myself don't play with music on to assist with jump cutting, but I can't help but feel that this 2.5-minute loop, it's playing now, could get a bit tedious after a while. One key annoyance is the aforementioned camera only panning across when the Scout gets to the edge. I made the mistake of assuming nothing unpleasant was on the other side, and as a result, became an explosion far too often. I can only guess this was due to older machines, and their inability to draw them in fast enough to play at a tolerable speed. Also, losing a life right as most of the level is done, and the end is in sight, is something I did far too frequently. And it's super annoying as the stage completely resets. I didn't feel bad about just putting in the code for the next one. There's no chance of a high score to lose, because there is no score, and I'd already proven to myself that I could beat it if I moved around with a bit more patience. Ultimately then, I do think Scout is worth playing, for the simple reason that I had fun playing it. The puzzle aspects aren't particularly hard, they're not going to challenge a player in the same way that 3 and 3 or Systems Twilight does. But it's enough to bring out a bit of thinking at least, and winning a stage is quite satisfying. I recall it not playing very nice on faster Power Macs with OS 9, so it's not the most accessible title out there. Online and my own implementations of DOSBox also failed to run it properly. There is, however, a rewrite of the game in SDL that can be played on OS X, Linux, and some other stuff. I wasn't able to get that working either, but I've popped the link in the description if you fancy trying it yourself. That'll do then for this edition of YY's MG. Thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more, and if action puzzle games are your bag, check out these vids on some of the others I've done. Thanks for watching then, and see you next time.